The feds ban flying dirtbags without a warrant, at least. Chrome loses some weight, and we'll tell you who's dragging Google into court for stealing data, allegedly. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 417 for Thursday, September 3rd, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Intel. Small business owners can't afford to choose between A or B. If both help your business, you want A and B. With Intel Power 2-in-1s, you get performance and mobility, power and freedom. That's the power of and. Experience it at smallbusiness.intel.com. Megan Maroney is off today. I'm Mike Elgin. Let's jump right into the news. The U.S. Justice Department today released a new policy for the federal government's use of cell phone tracking. The new policy is simple. Federal agencies need a warrant before they can track phones using cell site simulators, also known as IMSI catchers, stingrays, or my favorite, dirt boxes. They're called flying dirt boxes if they're in an airplane. In the past, the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and other agencies used to track suspects without warrants from cars or airplanes using technology that interacted with the target's phone as if it was a cell tower. The American Civil Liberties Union conservatively guesstimates that about 53 agencies in 21 states use cell site simulators. Google's Chrome browser is notorious for being a slow, bloated pig of an application. Now Google says its new Chrome 45 version of the browser is a lot faster and does a better job of reducing memory usage. Chrome 45 will render the most recently used tabs first, for example, so the sites you're probably most interested in will load faster. And when heavy processes aren't using a lot of memory, Chrome will take some quality time to go in and do some memory management for more efficient processing. Google claims, for example, that when running Gmail, Chrome 45 can free up almost a quarter of the memory normally used. And finally, as reported earlier, Chrome 45 will pause flash ads by default. Yay. A navigation company called Phantom Alert is dragging Google into court for stealing data. Google has a social map application called Waze, which it bought 2 years ago for $1 billion. Phantom Alert is alleging that fake points of interest data inserted by Phantom Alert into its own database also exist in Waze's, which could only happen if Waze copied it without permission. A lawyer for Phantom Alert claims that the data theft was done by Waze to make itself more attractive for acquisition. And in fact, it was very attractive. Both Facebook and Google tried to get it. Facebook lost, Google won, and now Google is a company that's in court. 9 to 5 Mac is reporting that Apple is planning to release in October a 21.5-inch iMac with a 4K display. The screen will sport a resolution of 4096 by 2304. Well, coming up, we'll find out why the Pentagon's top robot guy fears smartphones more than robots. But first, for small business owners, there's no room for compromise. You can't afford to choose between A or B. If both help your business, you want A and B. With Intel-powered 2-in-1s, you don't have to choose between a laptop or a tablet. You get both. Powered by Intel's latest family of core processors, you can impress clients at the touch of a tablet and handle robust programs on the go. You can do it right, and you can do it right now. There's a better way to work, and that's the power of and. Experience it at smallbusiness.intel.com. Intel-powered 2-in-1s give you laptop performance and power, as well as tablet mobility. You get maximum versatility, amazing battery life, peak performance for business, and great built-in graphics. With 5th-generation Intel Core processor-based laptops, you can run business applications up to 2.5 times faster than on a 4-year-old laptop. Experience the power of and. Visit smallbusiness.intel.com and find out how Intel-powered 2-in-1s can improve your small business. That's smallbusiness.intel.com, and we thank Intel for their support. Mike Murphy is a reporter at Quartz and joins us now with his little pal. Hey, Mike Murphy, what's going on? Look at that, a BB-8. You've got one of those little Disney/Star Wars robots that, for some reason, I don't have. I don't know why I don't have this. So what's going on? Before we get into the actual content, why don't you quickly tell us what's going on with that little robot?
Sure. So this is made by Sphero, which is a robotics company. And they've made a little replica version of the robot that's going to be in The Force Awakens. And for $150, this little guy can be yours. He works off of an iPhone app. that may or may not take 6 hours to connect to your phone. But when it does work, it's pretty cool. I had everyone in the newsroom running around. I was going under chairs and tables and stuff. And it's supposed to respond to your voice commands as well, but I haven't managed to get that to work yet. You have to say, okay, BB-8, like it's your Google Now app. But it's pretty fun. Not sure about the price, though.
It's I think it's a pretty good price for a kind of quasi-intelligent, charming robot. It's also going to have an Android version, which in the beginning I hear won't have some of the features of the iOS version. It's also really interesting to point out that Sphero is a company that actually worked with Disney to develop the robot that you're going to see on screen. So this is actually not them copying Hollywood. This is them copying their own partnership with Disney and their own creation. So this is incredible news for this company, because they used to just have the ball without the head, without the personality, without the movie, without any of that. Nobody really bought it. It's kind of a cool product. So they developed the robot for the movie, then they developed the toy, and now this is going to be a super popular item, I think. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, I think so, too.
And we're going to get into some actual robot news in just a sec, but you've been writing some really interesting stories, and one of them is around the usage by young people around how they deal with their screens. Now, people used to complain that teenagers watched way too much TV, but now people are complaining, at least Ericsson is complaining, that they're not watching enough TV. What did the report say about the screen habits of what they're calling Generation Z?
So the report found that it seems that teenagers today are no longer glued to televisions, but rather smartphones, laptops, and tablets. So even though we've got these amazing TV screens in our house pretty much everywhere in the world these days, the youngest generation has taken to the small little screens that they can carry with them. And part of the reason is because a lot of the content they're watching is actually stuff their friends are posting, videos of their friends doing things and things like that, that you're not going to sit there and, like, you know, plug in your Chromecast and, like, open up the YouTube app to do. So a lot of it is just, you know, stuff they're seeing on YouTube, their friends have recorded and that sort of thing. So it's not, you know, the big studio productions that you'd actually want to watch on a nice TV. But
they're getting in a lot more screen time overall. It's just that those screens are distributed among different types of platforms.
That's true. Ericsson actually found out that across all generations, TV screen viewing, or screens in general, the viewing is up 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Or sorry, a week.
That's so not as bad as a day. Yeah, that's quite an interesting thing. Now, there were some other interesting nuggets in this report. Can you give us one or two other interesting facts?
Sure. One of the things that I thought was pretty funny, and I referenced an old Bruce Springsteen song in my article, is that even with the, you know, the almost endless content it seems like we have these days on TV, people who are watching traditional TV, 50% of them are still saying that there's nothing on TV. Huh. And when it comes to what to do when they can't find something on TV, a lot of them, I can't remember the exact stat, but it was something like 30 or 40% just give up and go do something completely unrelated to the TV, which is pretty impressive.
Like they go outside or they talk to a human being or something like that. So it sounds like, as always, TV is garbage for the most part, and it's just that Generation Z is a lot better at finding other screen alternatives to fill in the gaps of their lives when they're looking at stuff. Very interesting. Now, you also wrote a very compelling piece on the Samsung Gear S2, which runs on Tizen rather than Android Wear counterintuitively. Why doesn't Samsung want to run the Gear S2 on Android Wear?
So I got to preview the S2 the other day, and I spoke to one of the product managers on smartwatches for Samsung. And the rationale, at least what they told me, was they wanted to do things with their new smartwatches that Android Wear wouldn't have allowed them to do. Part of that is the way that you interact using the kind of spinny bezel on the outside, which is kind of hard to see on that one. But that, they said, would have been impossible on Android Wear. And then there were certain other things like, you know, they're actually using Tizen for their smart TVs and a few phones out in India and other places. So it seems like part of the reason is they say it was easier to build certain functionalities that they wanted, but it also seems like they don't want to rely just on Google's offering. Samsung has a pretty large say in Tizen. One of their executives is actually on the board that oversees how the operating system is managed. So they have a pretty good say in its future, and I think that is a good way of keeping some control over the operating systems, the software that are on the devices that they're going to have moving forward.
Samsung released a Gear S2 SDK today, which might lead to third-party apps in the future. But what about right now? Are there any apps that can run on the Samsung Gear S2?
So there's about 100 partner apps that were designed new just for the S2 that Samsung kind of worked to varying degrees of hand-holding with partners like Nike, Uber, Twitter, ESPN. And those are all pretty much ready to go right now. They say that there's 1,000 apps in total that were kind of upported for the S2 that you can download. But yeah, in terms of new partnership stuff, the SDK only went up today. So if you or I felt compelled to work on an entirely new operating system, you'd have to start from scratch today.
Yeah, I do like that dial, though. You wrote yet another interesting article about killer robots. There's been a lot of public fear-mongering lately about the rise of intelligent machines and advanced robots, but you reported that the head of DARPA Robotics Challenge, the Pentagon's annual talent search for robots, is more afraid of smartphones than killer robots. Why is that?
So Gil Pratt made an interesting point, the manager in charge of the Robotics Challenge, that we're at such an early stage of robotics that, these movies like The Matrix, while awesome and terrifying, are so far in the future that the real things we need to be concerned about are things that will be in our future robots that we have right now, like the cameras in our smartphones, the connectivity of our web-connected devices, and who can see what. And right now I'm talking to you on a Mac that has a little green dot next to the camera that tells me that it's on, but there's no reason to believe necessarily that if that dot isn't on, that the camera isn't on, and who's actually watching. And it's, it gets a little conspiracy theory-esque, but it's a fair point that a lot of the technology we have today has microphones, listening capabilities that we just aren't entirely aware of what's going on at any given moment.
Well, we're going to have to worry about killer robots at some point, though, won't we? When will that be? 10 years, 20 years? When does Skynet really go online?
Better ask this guy.
There it is. That's his.
I think that we're going to see a pretty big boom in terms of robots. We love to make fun of the robots that were falling over at the Robotics Challenge and how clunky and awkward they were. But even since then, that was only 3 or 4 months ago. That same robot that most of the competitors use, which is made by a Boston-based company, has already learned how to run through the forest.
That's Boston Dynamics. That's actually a Google-owned.
Yeah. So it's crazy to see the advances that are happening, every month, let alone every decade. But I'm not sure how far away. We might get to a stage where we'll have robots that can perform certain tasks, certain physical tasks as well as we can. But I'm not entirely sure how soon we're going to have the kind of mental capabilities that we would really need to be worried about.
Yeah, and Boston Dynamics satisfies our science fiction informed thoughts about what robots might look like, because they essentially reverse engineer animal locomotion. They've got they've got the human version one, they've got the big dog one, they've got some that are spiders that climb up walls and stuff like that, but they don't have brains, they don't have intelligence. That's happening offline, and of course we can see artificial intelligence and that sort of thing happening in the cloud and controlling robots. All that is coming, but it sounds like we have a little while before we have to worry about it, and so that is a very interesting thing. Mike Murphy, thank you so much for joining us today on Tech News Tonight. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed reading these and some of the other great things that you're writing on Quartz. Can you tell people where people can follow you, say, on Twitter?
Sure. I'm at MCWM on Twitter.
Wonderful. And you've got a little robot. I'd watch that thing. It's coming to get us. All right, Mike Murphy, thank you once again, and take care.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. Well, a video posted on YouTube shows that ants near an iPhone on the ground immediately start circling the phone when it rings. The video summary blames electromagnetic radiation, but some ant experts disagree. Some say, for example, that the vibration of the phone is causing it. Others kind of agree with the electromagnetic theory. If any scientists out there want to win the Ig Nobel Prize, you might want to investigate. For example, will they also circle a Samsung phone? Do ants circle in the other direction in Australia? So many unanswered questions. Well, that's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/technewstonight with the number 2. Like us to get links to the show when it's posted and the stories we talk about. And if you want to be part of the conversation, post a comment on the stories we post. We'll read the best ones right here on this show. And you can subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TN2. Write us at tn2@twit.tv and watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today. Great show. Every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Mike Elgin. Thanks for tuning in.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.